seem, in my opinion, consistent with what the record showed.
Okay. And did you make any other observations during your evaluation, Dr. Scott, that were inconsistent with the psychological and neurological testing?
Yes. So prior to interviewing Mr. Cruz, I had read a good bit of evaluation material. I did have access to a good bit of the defense testing as well. And so it was unclear to me how he might present intellectually based on kind of what was written. And so I wondered, could he even read? How did he read? What was his actual level of functioning? So I did start off fairly basic to try to assess that. And then as the interview went, I was with him for almost 21 hours, I came to learn more about how he thought. And I think some of the clips describe that.
Yes. Aaron, clip 5B, please.
Okay, I'll fill it. So before you do that, I'm just going to check your reading, okay, a little bit. Do you like reading, Nick? Okay. And so I'm going to ask you to read out a few things out loud. You can give me the pen back for a minute. And I just want to make sure you can read all these questions, okay, all right? So I'm just checking out your reading. So let's see. I don't know if you like African animals or anything like that, but this is a book.
I like it.
This is a book on, let's see if I can find one that might be interesting to you.
Anything really.
Do you like reading, or do you like animals, or what's?
I like animals.
Okay, let's do this one. I just want to have you read out a little bit for me. Here we go.
Yeah.
You might need your glasses because.
You need me to take off my mask or anything?
No.
Okay.
So just start kind of here and read the first couple paragraphs for me.
You got it. Indeed, when it comes to the question of which land animal is fastest, the cheetah wins paws down. It relies on its record-setting speed to chase down prey. Unlike other cats, the cheetah usually hunts during the day. Cat does its best to get within 150 feet of its potential of prey, which is less than half the length of an American football field, and then quickly revs up to a sprint. If the cheetah succeeds in bringing down its target, it clamps its jaws down on the animal's throat, cutting it off its air supply. Before digging in, the cat usually moves its meal to an area by a tree.
Okay, you're doing fine, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that if I gave you this questionnaire, you could read all the questions, but I'm confident you can. So, okay, so the point of that was, before I can administer some of the questionnaires, I have to make sure he can read at a certain level. It wouldn't be fair if you just hand them a questionnaire and then it could be like random scoring or stuff. So that book is at the appropriate age level where he could do, the testing that followed. So I did the testing after. And so that's not like extremely high level reading. I'm not trying to suggest that it is, but it's at least at like the beginning junior high kind of level, and he did fine with it. So it was fine for him to do all the testing questions.
Okay, and then there came a time you were discussing chess, correct?
Yes, so at some point he mentioned that he had become familiar with chess. He described that he wasn't necessarily a great player. What I was really interested in was, because sometimes people may boast about things and maybe they can't do it, right? And so I wanted to see if he could name the chess pieces and name the moves, which is more than a lot of folks in the general population are aware of or could do.
Okay. Aaron, 6B2, please.
Any other counselings that you can remember? You talked about Jared.
There was like a woman that wanted me to get into chess. And she also wanted me to try to punch a pillow, see if that would help relieve any stress.
Right.
There was also.
And did you end up playing chess?
No.
Yeah. Or can you play chess?
It wasn't my interest. I didn't even play it right. I've only learned that I was playing wrong throughout my years.
Okay. And can you play chess now?
I'm not very good at it.
Yeah. Tell me what you remember about some of the different names of the chess pieces. What are some of the names?
We got the rook, we got the king, the queen, the knights. What was the other one? I forgot whether bishop. Okay. And the pawns.
Okay. That sounds like all of them. And do they move in different ways?
Yeah, they move in different ways.
Okay.
The knight goes like in like an L form.
Okay.
The king goes pretty much anywhere, but only one spot at a time. The queen can go anywhere on the chessboard. I think the bishop goes sideways, and then the rooks just go up or left and right.
Okay.
I think that's about it.
Do they allow you to play chess in here at all?
Yeah.
And who do you get to play chess with?
My psych doctor.
Okay. And are you able to, how do you do?
Terrible.
Terrible.
I think he's cheating somehow.
How do you mean?
Huh? He always uses his queen.
He always uses his queen?
Yeah, he always uses his queen.
What does that mean? I don't play chess, so...
So the queen is probably the most powerful piece on the board, so he uses that a lot, and he always gets me with it.
Okay.
And then we play Uno, and I usually crack up jokes with him. It's pretty fun.
Okay. And which doctor is this? What's his name?
Dr. K.
How do you spell last name? K, you said?
Yeah, I call him Dr. K. I can't pronounce his full name.
Okay. Is he a treatment doctor here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what do we learn from that? Maybe he's not the greatest player. I don't know. But what he can do is he can remember the names of pieces. He remembers them accurately. He can remember the moves. He even said at the end, the queen is very powerful, and he uses the queen. So there was at least an understanding of basic moves, basic memory of those. So he can, there are three things that you have to have for a memory. And if he's described as having a memory impairment, we look at those in different ways outside of the testing. A person can do bad on testing, but in reality can do good in life. So can he observe? That's number one. Where you observe something, can you store it? That's number two. Number three is, can you recall it? So this taught me that he has all three stages, at least that aspect of memory: observe, store, recall. And then it even had kind of more of an abstractive ability, which is sort of understanding the different moves and maybe some of the strategy.
Okay. And then there was this Zimbardo study. What's that?
Yeah, so there was, and I don't know if any of you ever took 101 psychology in college or maybe in grad school, but there's a really famous, interesting study, and I think it was in my Psych 101, and the premise of the study was sometimes called the Stanford study, I think, where you have like half the class or the people that are in the study, they're said, hey, you're going to be an inmate in this study. And the other half are said, hey, you're going to be a correctional officer in this study. And so they're separated, and there might be like a wall between them. I'm kind of simplifying it. And you don't see, if you're the correctional officer in the study, you're not a real correctional officer, but you know what I mean, you're role playing. And so you're told, okay, you can dial up a certain amount of pain, and other people will feel this, and somehow there's an incentive for doing that or not. And then at what level will people placed in a position of authority dial up the pain? And then and it's high, by the way, if there's something associated with that. And then they reversed it. And so the people who had been the inmates in the study then become the correctional officers. And then they see, well, they do the same, and they do. And so this, he mentions this. He may get some of the wording a little wrong, but it's a high concept to appreciate that this is a study examining how authority in certain situations can corrupt. So you wouldn't expect someone that didn't have an abstractive ability, reasoning, significantly impaired functioning, to kind of understand that complexity. It's oftentimes taught at like even a college level.
Okay, and that's to be Aaron, please.
Did you ever take any kind of psychology or Psych 101?
Oh yeah, I did take psychology. I actually scored pretty well.
Okay.
And I passed the test too.
Okay. And that was at the Dave Thomas campus?
OCLC.
OCLC.
Yep.
And so
The only
OCLC.
class I actually passed any.
Okay. What kind of things did they teach in the psychology class?
Well, they didn't teach anything. It was just basically we were just doing things on computer.
Yeah. What kind of topics on the computer were there?
People with mental health, past tests, such as the one where they practiced this test on prisoners and guards. So basically what happened was there was this test back in, I think, the 80s or 60s, and they had like a bunch of inmates become security guards, and security guards become the inmates. and it didn't turn out well. Actually, the security guards turned against inmates and treated them horribly, which came up with a theory that if you put someone in a situation and under certain circumstances, they'll abuse that power.
Yeah, it's a famous study, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the key point. Like if I had a college student write that answer for what was the meaning of that study, that would get credit for it. That's exactly what it meant. So it showed he had that reasoning ability.
Okay. And about, excuse me, memory recall.
Well, there were his memory recall in many different ways was demonstrated during the exam. So it's interesting dichotomy because, and I watched this with Dr. Denny's eval, happened to me at some points during mine. You asked him a question, oh, I have a terrible memory. I really can't recall. And so I reflected on that because I'd seen that some of the testing results also suggested that, you know, he may have some impairments in memory. So there were situations that came up during the interview that actually showed me he has a really good memory.
Okay, Aaron, would you please play 1B?
What kind of books are you reading now?
I have a book of maps. I'm trying to figure out what's happening in Ukraine. They're attacking on 4 sides, the Russians.
Yeah, and so it sounds like you're able to get some news while you're in here.
Terrible news.
Yeah, and so you have a map, and you even sort of heard on the news about.
They're getting close to the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv.
Yeah, tell me what you've learned on the news about what's happening with this.
Well, so far I heard that Putin ordered a missile strike near the capital.
Okay.
Killed 10 people.
Okay. Anything else you've learned?
I learned that the UN and all the other countries are afraid that if they cut Putin in the back corner, he might release nuclear weapons.
Okay. And from what you've learned about your history and you have this map book.
Actually, know a lot about him, actually. He did judo. He had trouble in school.
This is Putin we're talking about?
Yeah, he actually told the newscast that he couldn't go into the KGB. They had to find him. He couldn't find them. Like, he had to go through this whole process in order to go there.
Yeah. How'd you learn all this?
They had a book on a book card about him.
Oh, okay. On the book card here?
Yeah, his father served in World War II. Before that, he had a grandfather who served in World War I. Or a godfather, I don't know. I can't remember. His mother lived in St. Petersburg, Russia. When the war came, his father almost got captured. He managed to escape and make it back to the borderline with Russia, but Stalin ordered him to go back to the front line, so that's what he did. He got injured, and then he worked on the farm for the rest of his life until his mother gave birth to him. He has 2 daughters. He got married, I think it's 1969.
This is Putin we're talking about?
Yeah, he had a tough life.
Okay.
Yeah, his first wife he wanted to get married at a young age, but he didn't. He kind of regretted, but tries not to think about it. He didn't really talk about it too much, his relationship, but he had a hard life. When the USSR was falling, he was in East Germany. He was behind back work as a KGB agent. He was pretty much getting information from back from the States and Russia, USSR. But no one was really following any orders by the time the fall of the Berlin Wall was happening. Actually, where he was working, all the mobs from East Germany went into the building, tried to figure out who was KGB or not.
Okay.
And he managed to escape. He managed to get some guards, and he went back to Russia, where he worked his way up to becoming president of Russia.
Okay. And from your reading and knowledge, how do you think things are going to turn out?
I'm hoping maybe he does the right decision and calls for a ceasefire, and that he apologizes to the Ukrainian government and offers them assistance in rebuilding the country.
Okay.
It's probably his best option.
Okay. From what you read about him, what do you think the likelihood is he'll take that option?
I think he'll figure something out.
Okay.
That's just me, my personal opinion. He might cause for a ceasefire.
Okay.
I hope so. That's what I'm hoping, maybe within a year or so. I don't think he's going to capture him by the end of the week. Ukraine? No, I don't think he is.
Okay, so really several important things about that clip. You may think it's just to talk about Putin, but it's not. It's a big important part of, or an important part of the evaluation. One, and something I haven't mentioned, and so I'm at fault for that, is one of the things that we look at if someone has a pervasive developmental disorder or a neurodevelopmental disorder, particularly in the category of autism, is there's both verbal things you look at as far as how they communicate and nonverbal. So one of the nonverbals that you're looking at is, does the person make eye contact? Another is, I kind of overdo it, but do they use their hands in an expressive way or not? And so if you see future clips of that, and here it was quite, he oftentimes uses his hands, he's describing things. So this is not characteristic of autism. It is not characteristic of pervasive developmental disorder. He is communicating, he's making eye contact, he's describing. So I just wanted to make sure you learned that from that clip. The other thing is he read a book about Putin, and that was an impressive amount of information. I certainly didn't know that much about Putin. There was a lot of information that came out from that. And he did make a couple of errors. I think he got the wedding wrong or the wedding year wrong on that, and maybe a few other, maybe one other, not exactly on target, but that was a tremendous amount of detail. So this takes it to a different level. It's not just that he can read the book, like when he read the book about the cheetah. He can read a higher level book on a complicated, issue and remember it later and then recall accurately a lot of the facts. The third point I wanted to bring out about this clip is when we talk about abstraction, some people test abstraction by saying, how did they do in a proverb? So you give them a proverb. What does it mean when people say, don't cry over spilled milk? And if they don't do well on that, then you say, oh, they can't interpret. Their brain may be somewhat restricted. Another way to look at abstraction, though, is from the knowledge you've learned about Putin or about whatever you've learned in life, how do you apply that in a reasoning manner that indicates you can abstract? Towards the end, and remember, my interview was on March the 1st, so this was either on March 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I don't remember which day this came from, but the invasion had only been about 6 days prior. So he got a lot of projection about what he thought the anticipated outcomes would be. It's not going to happen, in 6 months, a year. He's right. I hope he doesn't threaten nuclear. He's right. He may have to find a way out. He's right, if he can. So a lot of application of real life learning and reasoning in that clip.
Okay. And there was also, did you use some memory call for abstract reasoning?
Yes, and so that helped describe it as well.
Okay. Clip 3B, please, Aaron.
So tell me about that. You mentioned that earlier this morning.
So in order to go in the military and get a good job in the military, you have to score high on the ASVAB first. The ASVAB is a crazy test.
Tell me about some of the questions and what it was like. Best you remember.
Here, I can write down something.
Okay. Let me take out this piece of paper. I've never taken it, so I don't...
It's crazy tough.
Okay, give me some examples.
Okay. I didn't even do too well, so see. Try and come up with a question I could. Let's see. Something like that, like tough, really tough questions.
Let me see what you wrote here.
Those are just small examples. It gets really, really complicated and tough.
So what is a H2O molecule? What's this right here?
All right, let me see. What is a H2O molecule of water?
Of water. And what would your answer be to something like that?
Hydrogen, and what was the other one? Helium, I believe.
Okay, and then what does this say?
Who was Josephine during the French Revolution?
And what's the answer to that?
It was Napoleon's ex-wife.
And then this last one?
What's the square root of 256?
And what's an answer to that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Made up.
But would these be questions, are these exact questions from that test or just similar to what?
Those are simple questions. I can't put in, give you a good one. It gets really complicated.
Okay, so a couple things. I was in the military, so there is a test that you can give called the ASVAB. I may be getting it wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. And he did poorly on that in reality when he took it in roughly the 10th grade at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And so, and that's documented. What I'm asking here, though, is something different. This is a person that I might have had the impression couldn't maybe read that great or couldn't remember things, couldn't come up with an abstractive way to think about the world. And so I'm asking him about this test, and he volunteers to write the questions. I don't lead him. I don't ask him to do that. Important for a couple of reasons. One, again, autistic people, and I've worked in autism clinic at the University of California, San Francisco. He is initiating the interaction there. He's making eye contact. He reaches over. He has the behavior.
Sir, could you slow down a little bit?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I know. Sorry. So he has the behavior that indicates that he's engaged and interactive. He then, out of his own mind, comes up with 3 separate questions. And the first one is, it's a science question, what is the H2O molecule of water? Well, that tells me that he does remember that H2O is the chemical symbol for water. He goes on to say H is either helium or hydrogen, so it shows a little bit more knowledge about the periodic table, even if he doesn't get every other aspect of the molecule of water. Number 2 is, who is Josephine related to the French Revolution? So now he's come up randomly with a history question, and then he answers it. And then the third one is a math question. So he's writing a sample screening academic test. And he has the square root, and the number that he chose, although he said he didn't know the answer, if you do the math on it, it actually is one of those that's a perfect. If you have a square root, it comes out with an actual number. So the odds of that, I guess it could happen, but it would be pretty unlikely. So this is multi-step thinking. I'm going to create a test. I'm going to think of 3 questions that I know the answers to and show them back to you out of his knowledge.
Okay. And then there was another clip about the description of an AR-15. Why was that significant?
Right. So part of this crime actually involved an AR-15. And so to what degree did he understand what an automatic weapon was, what an automatic weapon could do, and or was it just something that was beyond his control and he didn't? So I think that this clip helps illustrate his knowledge of the gun.
Okay, Aaron, clip 3, please.
Describe to me what, if someone knew nothing about guns, how would you explain to them what an AR-15 is?
An AR-15 is a long rifle, and it's used as a sporting rifle. It shoots in semi-automatic fire, and then there's fully automatic fire. Fully automatic fire is only meant for the military. No legal person is allowed to get it unless they have a firearms license or something like that in the state of Florida.
All right, and so, again, what's the difference between, for a complete novice, between a semi-automatic and a full automatic?
Fully automatic is continuous fire.
Okay.
And semi-automatic is single fire. So every time you pull a trigger, you only pull once.
Okay, so does that mean you have to pull for each time you fire it, or does it do it on its own?
So like that.
Okay.
While in fully automatic, you just hold on as long as possible until the rounds are completely empty.
Okay. Okay, and so he has a good bit of detailed knowledge about the AR-15. There are other parts of my interview where he discusses this weapon in more detail. He also acknowledges that each click of the trigger is a voluntary, you have to do it. You have to click it yourself. It doesn't just start shooting people on its own. So every click of that automatic weapon was automatic from his finger, but not from a mechanic of a gun. It's something he did.
Okay. And then you did something with visual spatial, the marksmanship?
Yes. So one of the other real-life practical areas you might want to examine are both hand-eye motor coordination and perhaps visual spatial relationships related to that. So he was in JROTC, and he did join and was on their marksmanship team. And so it is an aspect of measuring how good he is with aiming, with hand-eye coordination, and I thought this clip summarized that.
Aaron, 7B, please.
I think 10th, partially 10th.
You're right,
Yeah.
okay. So you went there, and how many people were in your class?
30 people at a time.
30 per class, and if you...
In JRTC in the morning, so we have different names for morning sessions in JRTC. The morning session I was in first year was really short. There was not that many kids, so we had a chance to speak, get to know one another, build up our confidence with each other.
Okay, so was your JROTC, was that your first class of the day?
Yeah.
And that's when you went, and I just want to make sure I got the years right, because you left there roughly when you hadn't quite finished the 11th grade, is that right?
I think so, yeah.
And then...
I was doing really well in that class.
In the JRTC?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Who was your teacher?
John DeMauro.
Okay, and I've never been in a
Sergeant John DeMauro.
in a JRTC class. So tell me what happens in a JRTC class.
JRTC is the short-term definition of JRTC is Junior Officer Training Corps.
Okay.
It's supposed to make you ready to go in the military, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to seek a military career in the K-9 unit, if not K-9 unit, then Army Ranger School. So I was trying to learn everything I can about the military. So the first step was to go into JRTC, take a class, learn marksmanship, because I wanted to experience that, just to get an idea of what it's like. And I learned a lot.
Okay, tell me what you learned about marksmanship.
I learned how to shoot a gun. I learned how to zero in a rifle.
What does zero in a rifle mean? I don't know what that means.
It means to shoot dead center or shoot on impact. Where you want to shoot your target, like, see that bottle?
Yeah.
If you wanted to shoot the top of that, you're supposed to zero it in, so you keep shooting it until you're able to get the cap off or something like that. That's when you're ready.
Okay, what type of training, gun or whatever, did they use?
We didn't do anything that you see on TV.
No?
No. What we did was we sat on a platform, like a little green thing, and then we set up our rifles. We put on these little things around our arms, and we had some sort of air pellet gun, which I think functioned on CO2 gas. So we had cylinders in it. So we pull back the thing, and then you're supposed to put it in the thing, and then you're supposed to let go. And then you look, and it's supposed to hit the target about 10 meters. So we set up these targets 10 meters. And there's prone, kneeling, and then standing.
Okay.
And
Three different positions you have to learn?
3 positions, yeah.
And
With that particular
how did they determine if you were good or not?
You have to shoot a target at 10 meters the size of a dime or a quarter.
Okay.
It actually decreased in size over the years. I don't know if I heard it's a penny now.
Okay. So overall, how did you do as a mark in that class or in that JROTC? Were you
Well,
a good shot?
I was in the top one. I was probably the third or fourth one from being top in the class.
Okay.
The females are a lot better at shooting than men.
And that's because?
They're just better shooters.
Okay.
Even the Marines did their own study on that. It's true. Women are better shooters than men.
Okay. And so anything else you learned in that class?
I learned leadership skills. I learned...
Give me some examples of some leadership skills.
whenever someone's in need, you're supposed to go up to them and make sure they're all right. If someone were to challenge you in a fight, you're supposed to walk away from it. If you're marching and someone falls down, you're supposed to help them up. And if someone's having issues with some sort of class, you're supposed to help them out.
Okay.
You're supposed to stick up for one another. That's what theirs is about.
Okay.
All right. Couple things important about that clip. One of them I think stands out pretty clearly, and that is he understands about sighting a weapon, aiming a weapon. He can do fairly well, hit a target, and so that's a skill that he had and knowledge that he had prior to February 14th. The other thing is kind of at the end, and maybe it's subtle, maybe it's not, but when he talks about the leadership skills that he had learned, these are coping skills and things, how you handle a situation that he was aware of, had learned in class prior to February the 14th, 2018. So you help someone up if they fall down. You walk away if there's a bad sort of incident. So it's not that he didn't know or understand that he did. It's just that with the antisocial personality disorder, they don't care. That's just not what they would do, even if they know that's what they're supposed to do.